All right, ready? You can start.
I'm not starting.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Blue Ox Running Podcast. We have a fantastically crowded store this morning with 3 guests. We're going to get to that, but you might be able to guess who. We've teased this episode a little bit, and it is Eau Claire Marathon week. So we have the Eau Claire Marathon crew. Some of the crew, there's a ton of people that pitch in and help with that organization, but we have 3 guests today, and we will get to that in a second. But before that, Alicia, how's life? How are you doing?
It's good.
It is springtime. The sun is out. What is your word of the week when it comes to Eau Claire Marathon? If you could pick one word to describe your past, present, or future with the Eau Claire Marathon, what's that one word?
It's got to be one. We'll go.
We've broken that.
Hands up, cheering.
Hands up, cheering. Okay, we're going to get into a little bit more with the Eau Claire Marathon. Thank you for being with us. Here's the intro music. So what's your spring running goal?
Qualify for the Boston Marathon.
Claim the beer mile title.
Training for a triathlon.
20 minutes again under a 5K.
To run happy.
Balance, running and family.
Finish Grandma's marathon.
To not die.
Fast.
Or slow.
Let's go! Fast or slow! Let's go! Fast or slow! Let's
All right, before we hear from our guests, Alicia said hands up cheering. Why would you say hands up cheering? I don't get it. What does that mean to you with the Eau Claire Marathon as we come into April and May?
Yeah, we've been open for many years.
6.5, 7 years.
Yes, and I have yet to run the Eau Claire Marathon because I am usually back here being a support, cheering the kids, cheering friends, cheering Adam.
Yep.
And I honestly love that role. My experience is probably very different than yours for the Eau Claire Marathon, but it's awesome to be a part of it that way.
Yeah, I mean, the store, as we're sitting right here, we're looking out at South Barstow Street. It's about 3 miles from the finish if you're on the route, but it's about a block down and 2 blocks over from the finish if you're a spectator and can just walk to the finish. So it's kind of in the heart of downtown where people are coming into downtown. They're starting to feel the pain. They're at mile 10-ish for the half marathon. They're at mile 23-ish for the full marathon. And I remember the first year I ran it, you handed off a water or something. Here we had a tent. It was a whole thing, and it was actually very warm that year. And I definitely needed it because it was Cramp City and more hydration, all that good stuff. A lot of people get some support here right by the store, but also there's obviously water stations before and after Barstow as well.
Yeah, I've seen it all. Being a spectator, a man has fallen here and needed support in our store, actually, that we let him come in because
he hit
was
his head
bleeding.
on the curb.
Didn't want to stop because he was so close to the finish, but we made him all the way from like the first couple years with the Tangled Up in Hue. One of their owners was dressed up. Was he like a...
He was a referee / whistleblower. Like he was just a fanatic of sorts. It wasn't even like a set costume, but he was definitely mustached and loud.
Yes. And then personally, one of my favorite years is I had kids running and you and him came in around the same time. It's what we featured one of our videos.
Leo ran the 5K?
Yes, and I wasn't sure where he was. And just to share, I was looking for him, couldn't find Leo, and there was 10 people surrounded by Leo to make sure he was okay.
Yes.
And we also lost Leo one year.
We should have Leo on the podcast. Yes. Leo's had an interesting go with the Eau Claire Marathon. I think the first year we were back in town. See, when we were... Quick side note, when we were in college and in Eau Claire, the Eau Claire Marathon didn't exist, right? And so we're part of the university system and we're loving that crowd and all that, but more competitive, track, cross country, all that. And then we leave. And one of the reasons we were looking at Eau Claire is we kept seeing our friends and family that were in Eau Claire start to do more running, Ragnar relays, and Eau Claire Marathon was just getting bigger. Every year, it was just this landmark, event in the calendar.
Our landlord his profile picture was a picture of him with Eau Claire Marathon stuff on, and never a runner. And I asked him, I was like, oh, and he's like, oh yeah, every year our store, because he owns Hooligans, he's like, we do the relay. Right. And I was like, okay, something is to this with the Eau Claire Marathon being big back here when it didn't exist when we were here.
Right. So, I mean, that's actually how we got this spot. We didn't have a lease signed, but we had an agreement, a very formal agreement that fell through on a different property downtown. And I basically quit my job, and we were going to start a business in Eau Claire, and then all of a sudden our property fell through, and we were in a little bit of a scramble. And then Alicia reached out to her former boss in college. It's just like a college job, but he was so fantastic that they kept in touch on Facebook. Saw he's like running now, doing Ragnar Relay, and he's like, oh, we're like, hey, we're thinking about coming back to Eau Claire. He's like, why? And we told him why, and he's like, do you need a space to rent? And we're like, actually, as of last week, we do. So that was the start to South Barstow Street. That was the start to kind of getting on the marathon course, and the rest is history. I've run the marathon a couple times. The first 3 years that we were in town, there was kind of a COVID year in there as well. I've been injured where I volunteered. I also saw my dad run his first marathon ever at the age of 64, I believe, finished up in Carson Park there. There's a picture in my office that I will cherish forever and make many copies because that's a fantastic moment there. And then lately, we've just been taking different roles when it comes to volunteers. And we have the cheer station here. Last year was the first year that I paced any race ever and had a blast, but also kind of felt the pressure of having a job to do and not just like running your race. So that's what we're going to get into today. We're going to get into honestly, kind of the non-running side of a big event like this. There's a ton that goes on 12 months out of the year. We're going to talk to some of the directors here and get into what does it actually take for you to be able to wake up, drive downtown, park, run 13.1 miles or your leg of the relay or a 5K or a full marathon and get your medal, grab a beer, have all these pictures and memories and go home. Like, what does that actually take on the organizational side and the volunteering side and everything in between? Before we get to that, I want to ask one question from someone in the room. Alex Rongstead, you've also run the Eau Claire Marathon. You've been a runner, you've been a cheerer. What has your role been the last couple of years, and what are you doing this year? It's very distinct, and I want people to know.
Yeah. So last year was the first year I decided to kind of bypass the events and do a little kind of impromptu mobile aid station, cheer station up on the north end of the full marathon course. It is scenic, beautiful, so fun to run, especially up in the springtime, this time of year. But it can be a little lonesome up there. So I think that kind of going up there and losing my mind with a bunch of cowbells and just a bunch of good vibes is it's kind of been the name of the game, and kind of want to do that again this year. And from the sounds of it, there's going to be a little bit more energy. There's going to be going to be a DJ up there this year. Actually, really excited to hear about how there's maybe a little bit more of that all around the course. So yeah, that's gonna be fun.
Perfect.
Yeah,
perfect. And maybe we'll give a bonus episode of why that little place is so special in your heart. There was a year that Alex ran the marathon, and we'll get into that on a different time. So I love seeing people kind of dive in different ways. Of course, like at our group run, people are talking about their registration, how they're going to run it, how they're not going to run it, and there's just honestly like probably 15 different ways that you could chip in and be part of the weekend. So without further ado, we're going to bring in our guests with the Eau Claire Marathon. All right, we are back from the fun little music, and we are going to get going with Eau Claire Marathon organization. We're just going to go down the line here. State your name, state your title, if you even have a title, and then what you primarily work on, even if it's everything. Like, I know people wear multiple hats. We'll start here with Emmy, and we'll go down the line. We have 3 guests today.
Yeah, I'm Emmy Allman. I'm the owner of the Eau Claire Marathon, and I would pretty much say I do everything, a little bit of everything, right. But I have a phenomenal committee that helps with it all too. So it wouldn't be possible without them.
Yep.
My name is Heather Market Sullivan. I am the director of operations, which means I also do a little bit of everything. Year round, I do a lot with our merch fulfillment. We meet with the police department. It's lots of hats. So whatever the big boss Emmy says, I help her with that.
Yes.
I'm Abby Seipo. I am our volunteer coordinator and sponsorship coordinator, and also help with a little bit of everything else behind the scenes too.
Fantastic. I feel like we have a little sweet spot, a little soft spot in our hearts with organizations like this, because when you see, first of all, you guys are all local to Eau Claire. You have ties to Eau Claire. Just give us a good overview of how the current ownership kind of started. Just what year it was and kind of how the family kind of came into the Eau Claire Marathon and how it's grown from there.
Yeah, I can go into that. So we'll go back to May 2012. Myself, my dad, my mother-in-law, and my husband, we ran the Eau Claire Marathon relay. My husband and I didn't live in Eau Claire. We came home and we had a blast. I will tell anybody, run the relay. It is so much fun. It's a party. And we said afterwards, like, this is going to be our tradition. We're going to come home to Eau Claire every single year and do it. Fast forward a couple months, the owners that had the Eau Claire Marathon for the first 5 years decided they didn't want to do it anymore. Shields approached my dad and said, do you want to take over the Eau Claire Marathon? He called me and said, should we do this? And I will be honest, at the time, I had no clue what I was saying yes to.
Right.
Since then, it has turned into a full-time job for me. Very lucky to have Heather, Abby, and the committee behind helping us, because we have grown it from a race of, less than 1,000 runners to we're going to be close to 5,000 runners this year. And it's something that runners don't run every year. So it's getting new runners every year to come back to Eau Claire. So we're really proud of that. And it's kind of, it's amazing what it's doing for the city.
Perfect. Yeah. So on this podcast, we're definitely going to get to the end and be talking about, specific questions that people have even emailed in and responded on Instagram about this specific year, this weekend. But we're kind of starting high level. We're going to start kind of from the beginning of their story and talk about what does an organization like this even do in the off season? Like, is there an off season? We all know the date and the weekend that we all come together. But if one of you could answer, like, what does an organization do, like, the other 12 months of the year when you have this big race day? What's the off season look like for an event with the Eau Claire Marathon?
Well, we really start planning the day of the race. We dive deep
for next year.
Exactly. We start reading reviews immediately as they start coming in. We take all of that stuff to heart. We dive into them, kind of figure out what needs to be tweaked, what went really well, what should we just repeat and have planned and ready to go. But then we dive into what needs to be improved or what can we add to the weekend. So we're going to different expos to recruit runners and tell them about our event. We're running races to see what other people are doing and what we can bring to Eau Claire. We go to different conferences to learn about the industry and what's new, what's coming up, what can we add into our event. We spend a lot of time ordering merch, designing our medals, picking out colors, all the different things year round.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, in general, like, what are some of, when it comes to merch and bills that need to be paid, and, like, we're obviously not asking for financial information, but sometimes I feel like there's this idea as your average participant pays their entry fee, and then their money just goes towards, like, the beer that they drink at the end, and they get a t-shirt. Like, over the course of a full year, people are registering, you guys are getting money in the door. How does that money, just in very general categories and stuff, how is that money being spent throughout the whole year when it comes to merch, when it comes to permits and all that stuff? Are there a couple things that people might not even know about?
There sure are. And a lot of it is, it's not that fun stuff that the runners see when they come down to Phoenix Park or they're, on the course. A lot of it is, we do have to buy our t-shirts. We have to buy our medals, the merch, of course. We're well known for great merch. We take a lot of pride in having like an athleisure and some technical merch for people to wear every day and out on a race course. There's the not fun stuff where we have insurance. Right. We have to pay a lot to for the permits to be in the city. When we run through a park, we're paying a park fee. When we have 80 porta potties, we're paying for 80 porta potties. They're really expensive. Garbage. That's the mechanics behind putting on a large event. We also do a lot of kickbacks in the community. We have groups that come in and give us a lot of time, and in return, we're able to help their group. So whether that's a student group, an athletic club, a church organization, we take pride in being able to give back right here in our community. I think that's kind of it.
Totally.
I wanted to add, one year we tried to put on a small little race in the park and realized
it was almost like a group run, a glorified group run with like another gym. We kind of did like and it wasn't even crossing any streets.
Right. And my fact that reason I brought it up is just because all that had to go into it, we ended up not even being able to have it, to realize like how much these 3 women probably hustle. And like I said, just the things that you don't know behind the scenes and like I said, I just had a little glimpse of it and we're like, we can't even make this happen. Yep. And I think we've been approached actually by people that want to do like a small race in honor of someone, or like such great things. And it has not happened due to like, oh man, I need this permit from the city. Like I just wanted to do this fun run, but a lot goes into this.
There's a lot to be said, like just for keeping everybody safe.
Oh,
correct.
100%.
With the police department.
Yes.
You cross streets and we're blocking off streets, and it all comes at a cost, but it's invaluable too to keep everybody safe.
Right. And the fact that you might not know that's the point, right? To put on a good event and you don't know these things happening behind the scenes.
Right. I mean, like, that's why I feel like a little bit of a kindred spirit, because like as a small business owner, it just depends on like the 15-second window that someone might walk by the store, or they might pop in and, I'm standing at I might even have my phone out because I'm posting something to Instagram. Like I'm standing at the register, or someone's in the front or the back. We might just be kind of tidying up a hat or something. And like, there's just so much that happens at 4 a.m. There's so much that happens at 10 p.m. There's so much that happens in the middle of the day in our offices, and billing, and vendors and distribution centers in Los Angeles are falling apart. And that means that our next order isn't going to get here on time. And there's just so much that doesn't meet the eye that I can only imagine when you put that event on that spans, basically the whole city, from, north to south, east to west, that people enjoy the fruit of it, but they don't see all the work that goes into it. So like, what's something that people might not even like recognize? They might not even think that happens, that it's just kind of in your wheelhouse, whether it's race week or throughout the year. What's something that people might not even think about that you guys do, that you do?
I think the things that you would think just come on repeat because we're putting on the same event every year. It's really not the same event. Something is always coming up. So, but then also the things that do happen every year. We're having conversations with the police, the special events committee, downtown Eau Claire. Even I think things that you would never think about is calling the train station to make sure that there's not going to be a train interrupting runners as they're passing that point on the course. So those are probably the things that you don't really think about, that they change a little bit every year. We do them every year, but we still have to do them.
Yep.
One other thing that we could add is when HSHS closed, that impacted a lot of everybody in the city of Eau Claire, right? But we kind of forgot that it's going to impact us too, because they were our medical provider.
Right.
They were who did the medical on the course, and you can't put on a race without good medical. So then we reached out to a lot of the people that did it. They just wanted to volunteer. They can't volunteer because they don't have the insurance behind themselves to be a medical volunteer on the course. So that was a hiccup this year that we never thought we would go through. Luckily, the city of Eau Claire and the EMTs have stepped up, and they're really going to take ownership of it, because we had to put the race on halt for a few minutes, because you can't put on a race without fantastic medical on the course and at the finish line.
Is this year 11 or 12 under ownership?
11.
Right, because last year was decade big. So like we won't do this. This could be a whole podcast. Is like every year there's probably something that's like come up just for that year, or like you find out about it, and like just hitting the repeat button, or like having this process repeat itself on autopilot is like a misnomer. It's never the same.
Never the same, because you have to reorder shirts. You have to pick new colors. You have to pick new designs. You have to pick a new medal. It's something you can't order in October because we don't know how many runners are coming.
Right.
We set deadlines for people but yet you guys would be amazed. Registration closed Sunday night. Not exaggerating, we got 43 emails yesterday about people that wanted to register.
Now I don't feel so bad about that one random email that Adam Conant sent Emmy about something I totally messed up on. No big deal. Everything got hammered out. It wasn't mine. It was for my kids. Worst father ever right here.
We figured it all out.
It happens all the time.
It happens all the time. But those are the things that it's like, personalized bibs. We say, tell April 1st. April 6th, somebody's like, oh, I really want a personalized bib.
Right.
All of a sudden, then it turns around, bibs don't come in time. So it's like you have to set these deadlines, but it's not things that, we'd love to check off the list in the fall. You can't.
Right.
Right. And what I'm hearing is to just be able to be adaptable. And once again, these are things that you're not seeing, but are just taking place and making the event run smoothly.
When it comes to getting closer to race week, like we're in right now, let's talk about race week. How's everyone's caffeine and sleep ratio going? Is race week when it really kind of like hits you that it's real, and that you kind of have to go into all hands on deck, or is that, the month before? Is it right now? We're recording this on Tuesday. We're releasing it on Wednesday. Like, where's your head at? What are people doing this week for race week?
I would say that it really starts hitting in like April 1. It's race month, and it's go time. That's when we really start looking at our volunteer numbers. These are the deadlines Emmy was talking about, where we really need to get those orders in. If they're not done already, they really should be. And so I think that's when it hits this week. I just told Heather the coffee breath is constant.
Yep. If you see someone in a Eau Claire Marathon official jacket, just like bring them coffee or be prepared to speak to the coffee breath.
Yeah,
is that right?
Exactly. But we have volunteers coming to our warehouse every night this week, 6 to 9. We're already prepping medals and shirts and packets. So, the excitement is high. It's time.
I would say actually last Thursday with your group run, the month has been crazy. It's been long. It's been long days, nights, not a lot of sleepless nights. And we got here and we left, and Abby and I called each other and we were like, that's what we needed. That was the energy we needed. We need to see our runners and know how excited they are. That was kind of the official start in our mind for race week.
Yeah, that's how it felt like for us too. Like it felt like the light switch kind of turned on. Everyone kind of like, because some years we have a lot of snow. I mean, every year is different with weather, right? And so like with Wisconsin and training in the winter, it sometimes doesn't really feel like marathon season until it's upon us, and the weather kind of blows out. And the first couple of years I ran it, it was really harsh winter, ice, -20 wind chills, all that stuff. And then it was like the first day of 65 and 70 degree weather on race day. And then it's been a little rainy in the last couple years. But what are some things that we can't control? Like weather is kind of the number one thing. Maybe we'll talk about weather in a little bit, but what are some things that you can control that you're on like today? And then what are some things that are going to come up this week that you just can't control and you got to roll with?
Honestly, I think you nailed it, and we just have to talk about the weather. I know you
weather.
didn't want to talk about, we didn't want to, but you have to. It's weather, right? I mean, it comes down to weather. But you made a great point. Last year, it rained, it snowed. We've never had more PRs than we had last year.
You hear that, everybody?
We never sent more people to Boston than we sent last year,
right.
Truthfully. Not the best for spectators and volunteers, but actually there were spectators everywhere. So
right.
we made it work. This year, that is what I will say right now is the biggest what if.
Right.
People are sending us emails. What are you going to do if it rains? What are you going to do if it thunderstorms? What are you going to do if this and that? And I will tell you right now, we've got plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I could keep going. We're looking at other spots for the expo. We're looking at if we have to delay because of thunder. We're looking at, well, what if it's an absolute perfect day?
Right.
So there are plans for it all. It's never perfect, but we will make it the best we can. And we will have a plan, but we will just tell everyone, follow us on social media.
Yes.
Read your emails. We will keep you up to date, but you have to be following along with it.
You've got a responsibility out there too to basically follow the email. I mean, you have to be communicative on the listening side of things.
And I always go into a race, if it is bad weather, I like say this like a broken record to all the people we have coming in the store. Like everyone's got to run in those conditions. Right. Everyone's out as a spectator. And so like, it's still a level playing field, like everyone's running through it and doing it together, regardless if it's a hot year or a cold year.
I mean, you signed up for, I'll be the one that's a little more direct because the Eau Claire committee they're so nice. But here's the runner's perspective. You signed up for a marathon or a half marathon or the relay or whatever, and it's an outdoor event. And you got to know up front, like, it might be really crappy out. I hope it's not, but like, this is part of the deal. You got to train your mind just like you train your body. Assume it's going to suck. Absolutely assume it's going to be horrific weather out there. I know no one's mind wants to go there, but for me anyway, when I'm coming up to an important event, I'm like really wanting it to be perfect, and I've got all this anxiety, and then I'm like, you have an edge up if you go in thinking it's going to be terrible, and you kind of like bring it on. Like, bring on the fury, bring on the wind, bring on the hail, and then when it's better, that's just icing on the cake. But everyone's got to run it, and this is like what you signed up for. Don't go out there and complain about the honking weather.
And to me, that's where the memories are made. Like, I specifically remember one year it was really rainy, and like being down with my friend and being able to take all of her gear and like sitting in front of the store with like multiple layers on in my umbrella. Like, that's the year I remember, because it wasn't just beautiful and I'm like cheering and enjoying the sunshine. Like, that's the year that sticks out to me. And so I think cool memories can be made that like, wow, I endured when it was so cold.
Totally.
Or
I'll be nice again. From a runner's perspective too, just prepare for it. Like, that you might have to, tuck arm sleeves. You might have to think about that wind jacket. You might have to hydrate a little bit more. When it's windy, you don't realize you might be dehydrating at a different rate because your sweat is evaporating differently and you're spending more energy shivering a little if you're not dressed right. So take the time to see what adjustments you can control. And the race has plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You better have plan A, B, and C. Right? Because the weather app, depending on whatever weather app you're on, it can change within the day. One year it was supposed to rain on race day, and then it just kind of did it all early the day before. So you just don't know until you wake up that day sometimes, and you better have plan A, B, and C with your race kit. And please, like, for the sake of Blue Ox Running coming in here, because we see it all, do not complain about the weather. There's people that run marathons through the canyons of California in 110 degree weather, and they prepare for it. So I'm not telling you have to do that, but they know what they're getting into, and what you're getting into is a marathon weekend in April. Don't complain about the weather. All right, moving on. The other thing that we wanted to talk about with race day, just talk about your typical race day. Everyone's going to be posting on social media when they wake up what they had. They had a banana for breakfast, and this is what they did with their shoes and their socks and their fun cheering squad. But what does your race day actually look like?
It starts very early in the morning. We get down to Phoenix Park 4:30 in the morning. Things that we've kind of sheltered overnight, we start pulling out, and a little before 6, our first runners for the full marathon that kicks off at 7 start rolling into the park to do their pre-race rituals. We do offer a morning of pickup, bib pickup, so we have out-of-towners that are coming into Eau Claire that morning. So we're just starting to oversee a sleepy Sunday morning park quickly becomes full of life and action. So we get the races kicked off. this is Heather, and I specifically see the races start, and then I run about a quarter mile to the finish line. So I get to that day experience seeing everybody come in. They've trained for months. It's my favorite spot to be, to see them come across the finish line. Some are crying, some are cheering, some are winning, right, Adam? I got to be the first person to hug Adam the year he took first in our marathon. And that, to me, makes that other 12 months of the year of the work. But after that, it's just things come up. All of race day, it's kind of crazy. It's a blur. At the end of the day, we sit down and look at each other, and it was like, we feel like we ran 4 marathons and got ran over by a truck. But it's worth it. And each of us has different roles that, Abby will be working and checking in on the volunteers. Emmy, I don't even know what she does all of race day. We all keep trying to call her. We're always kind of looking for her because she's in a million different places.
Oh yeah, she's all. One year, like there was a little bit of. We're getting to kind of the middle and the back of the pack coming through here at mile 23, and all of a sudden I saw this like electric scooter like flying through downtown Eau Claire, and I was like, who's got an electric scooter on the course? But they weren't on the course; they were on the sidewalks, and I was like, who's got an electric scooter on the sidewalk? And it was the marathon director. I'm like, let her through, everybody. There's places to be. There's places to see.
I was probably on the course, which we can say, but I was. I think I'm going to say 2 things that start off race weekend for me are the night before. So I don't live in Eau Claire anymore, but when I come home, I stay at the Lismore, and I stay in a fantastic room upstairs that overlooks downtown. And the night before, I will sit there and I will just look outside and I'll be like, holy moly. Yeah. This city, from me being a little kid to now, this downtown is amazing. It's insane where it's come. So I sit there and I do that and I'm like, okay, race is here. We're ready to go. My other thing, race morning, something really unique about our Eau Claire Marathon committee is we've got 20-year-olds, we've got 75-year-olds. Most everyone's ran at some level. Right. If it's 5Ks, 10Ks, marathons, ultras. So there's a lot of different experience. My favorite thing race morning is Bob Laniski. I don't know if you guys know him. He's been a runner in Eau Claire forever. He will get on the mic and he'll say, it's a great morning for a marathon. Yeah. And I kind of can get teary-eyed just thinking about it. And he starts it every year that way. And in my mind, I'm going, how lucky am I to be able to be working with somebody like that, who I've known my whole entire life, and that he has the passion for this race as much as probably our youngest member is probably Abby. And then you've got so much experience and knowledge between them. Race day, I never see the finish line except if it's a family member. Like my brother qualified for Boston. I was so excited. I ran through the finish line and I hugged him. Is that the first thing you're not supposed to do to a runner that get done? Is like trample him to the ground as soon as he just does it. But I did it. This year I will be in the finish line at some point. My daughter, who is not a runner, I will say not with a capital N-O-T. She doesn't even want to do 5Ks or 10Ks and cannot stand running, has secretly been training for the half behind my back. So she was supposed to surprise me race weekend and come here, but I found out a little earlier because stories weren't matching up. But so I will follow her for a little bit. Abby and I will just be answering lots of messages, listening to the radio nonstop. It doesn't stop. Talking with Command Central. So it's kind of a whirlwind of a day.
Yep. And you guys have all run, they're all runners. They've all run marathons before. They've all been part of other events. They all network with other race directors. Abby, is putting on race day as part of the committee harder than running the marathon, or is it kind of different? Is it adjacent? How is actually being part of a marathon different than running a marathon?
It could go so many ways with the answer to that question. They're hard in different ways. I think the energy as being on the committee is higher in my mind. As a runner, I was focused on what I was doing on race day and what my game plan was, right? And on the committee, my mind is like, what does everybody else need and how do I make that happen? I'm psyched, but I need to draw it in and focus on what we're doing. And so the exhaustion is very different and a little bit longer lasting, I would say, but amazing at the same time.
Perfect. Hey, we're going to move to our last questions that kind of came in from the herd and people on social media and whatnot. Some of these we've actually answered a little bit, but there'll be a little bit more rapid fire. One of them was, where are the quieter places on the route that need more cheering? We talked about the airport area and kind of being back by Eddy Lane. We used to see, a handful of people would park by Eddy Lane, and you'd be able to see people as they start the bike path, and then they'd have enough time to get to the finish.
I also think the bike path, because you can move along with it.
Yes.
Our course is very spectator friendly. I will say I don't run marathons for times, although now I have later in my life, but I run for the spectators. So when we created this course, we wanted a course that was very, very spectator friendly. You could park at the top of that and you could literally see a runner every couple miles.
Right. Yep. One of them is, where could I drop my clothes during my run if I get too hot? Are there certain places, or is it all going to be swept up?
I would say within the first mile, we'll pick up everything. And then I would suggest to somebody to do it at a water station.
Yep.
Because everything gets picked up from water stations. If it's in the middle and it's random, we don't know truly if you left it there and you're going to come back and get it or not. So we have a hard time if we pick up or don't. So I would say find a water station.
Yep.
And anyone you see along the course, like I think of Alex that's going to be out there, or we have a little tent set out here. We always bring a whole bin of stuff back in here. If you're or if you see one of us, we will bring it back to the store.
Yeah, we're not liable for it, but a lot of people do drop stuff off at Blue Ox Running. It's towards the end of the race, but if they need to throw gloves, throw a hat, throw their jacket, we'll just kind of push it in here, and then people will come in throughout that next week and get it from the store.
We will also have a lost and found in the
Yes.
red tent outside of the Lismore, where our little staff tent with the Eau Claire Marathon will be. So if you're missing something, you could always come there and try to find it too.
Yep. Now, there's about 100 ways to do this, but the question came in, what would be the recommended way for spectators to get around the course to view racers without a ton of traffic? My recollection and how the course is now is like, you can see the start and head to Brewing Project, and you're going to see them basically without having to almost do any walking at the beginning, and then, 3-4 miles in.
Where on the bike path, out by Melby, what mile mark is that? Like, that's where I have gone a ton, and there's always plenty of places to park and like get in and out of your car quickly and still make it other places. Do you know around what mile mark that is?
I think it's about 18.
Okay, that's what I was thinking too.
About 18 is
yes,
out there.
and on our website we do have a 2024 participant guide.
Yes.
That is a great spot for spectators and runners to get a lot of information. And in the spectator guide, we do have, or participant guide, we do have spectator spots that we have kind of highlighted as easy in, easy out. There's a map. There are some stars, and then the next page describes each star, what mile marker it is, kind of some tips on getting to that spot. So we would definitely recommend runners that are preparing their spectators or the spectators themselves to go check out that participant guide and look for that page.
My two points that I always say, stay on the inside of the course. Then you're not going to ever have to cross the course, and you can get to a lot of spots. If you're not from Eau Claire and you don't want to drive, come watch them at the start. You can watch them at about a 3-mile loop right over by the Brewing Project. You can come back into downtown, watch them mile 10 if they're on the half, 23 if they're the full, and then you can watch them at the finish. So you could technically see them 4 times, not leaving.
Yep.
So we really tried, when we moved the course from Carson Park to here, we strategically did that.
That's by the way, for a full marathon or even a half marathon, you get to see your participant 4 times without getting into your car. You can park, be downtown, see them at the start, and then, as Emmy said, as they leave downtown, as they come back into downtown, and then at the finish. That's all like a 3, 4, 5 block radius right there. Perfect. Last thing. Can people still volunteer?
We never say no to volunteers. There's plenty of things to do. You can reach out, volunteer at eauclairemarathon.com. We will always find a job and would love to have you involved in the race weekend.
Perfect.
Thank you guys so much for coming. The work doesn't go unnoticed. We get to see a little bit more.
Yep.
and hear their hearts. And so I think it's great that they can come on and share. I hope you guys can see how much they love this event and all the work they put in. Especially during busy race week. Like, thank you for coming during the race week. I know there probably could have been better times. There could have been worse times. We didn't want to catch you after the race week. But we really appreciate you guys coming in, and we will see you on race weekend.
Thank you guys for having us.
Absolutely.
And if you would have had us the week after, we wouldn't have voices. So this is probably good we did it before.
We'll leave with this. One year, I think the first or second year I was in here, your dad came in after race weekend to like pick up something that was dropped off or whatever. And we're so used to in the running store, people coming in and they're on this runner's high, but they're also just like wrecked and they're kind of limping and they're like, their knees hurting. And it's the first time they did a marathon. So we're seeing people in rough shape. And your dad walked in and was like, oh man, this guy like must have just done it. Oh, that's Pat. Like he just directed the marathon. Like you said before, it looked like he ran a marathon and then got hit by 4 trucks because you guys might not get any sleep until next week at this time. So thank you so much for making time, and it will all be worth it at that finish line. So appreciate you having us and us having you, and we will be out with the cheer. Fast or slow?
Let's go.
Fast or slow?